Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery's live stream. I'm Ajahn Sona, and we invite you to submit your questions in the question bar, the chat bar, or you may call it the philosophy bar. Well, let's go with the first question, Metta.
Yes, Ajahn, the first question today is from Abstract Mind. I experience severe amotivation in daily life as I deem worldly activities futile and unsatisfactory in the most ultimate sense, and I struggle with financial issues as a result. Yet, despite being an ardent follower, I cannot ordain, as I have serious ideological conflicts with a few common views, some falling in the gray incalculable area, and some being rejected without any logical refutation.
I think a lot of people enter the robes with that personality configuration, and what happens is that, as with a lot of things, you enter university, you change your mind. You're surrounded. You have a milieu around you. You have an atmosphere around you that you're living in. You have other influential people, and you realize perhaps that certain of your opinions and ideologies are to be dismissed. And you also learn about your own attachments to these things. They will work a lot. If you enter the Sangha, you'll just hear the phrase attachments to views and opinions frequently repeated, because that's the nature of things. In society, we kind of cherish that. We all have our opinions, views and opinions, and we argue strenuously for them. It's kind of what you're supposed to have, but actually, if we want to free ourselves from suffering, we can't be attached to these views and opinions. And the problem is primarily attachment to your views and opinions. So it's not the views and opinions. You have a view, say, that 2 and 2 is 4. And then somebody may say that it's actually, there's possibilities there. It could be 3, it could be 5. And it doesn't make you angry or anything like that they hold that view. So you have a view and opinion, but you're not attached to your view and opinion. So the Buddha is saying also, and many people are confused about this, is that, you must be detached from your views and opinions. Even Dhamma, you must be detached from. It doesn't mean that you don't have a view or an opinion. After all, at the beginning of the path, what's the first factor is right view. So all things follow right view. All of the rewards, the relief of suffering follows from right view. But if we attach to right view, so monks would go to the parks, and there they would find followers of other ideologies, other religious convictions, and they would debate. And the Buddha would say, if they contradict or dismiss your understanding of Dhamma or even the direct words of the Buddha, you should not be upset or reject or anything about that. Is that would be attaching to your views. You can make a legitimate and lucid argument to express your understanding of right view or the teachings of the Buddha, but you are to engage in an equanimous and dispassionate way with this. And if they have a better argument, perhaps you are wrong. And if you are right, but they refuse to accept it, and are wrong, then there's no sense in inflicting suffering upon yourself for that reason. So this is, especially with contemporary media, which is accessible to everybody. Anybody can have a comment on these websites and put out videos and so forth, and millions do. And people engage with that, and they're furious about this, and they love that, and so forth. And this is what is meant. The Buddha says, if you keep up with that, then you'll never be free from your suffering. You're engaged. So this is what is meant, and this is what you learn, and you're protecting your particular little political theories, or your equality theories, or something like your justice theories, etc., which are conditioned by your education, upbringing. This by attaching to any of those views, you will suffer. So this is why it's a different experience. If you go to university or to defend, it's perfectly fine that you feel very insulted by some politician saying something or other, and that you feel righteous indignation about the righteous anger and so forth, and it's just that fine, But that's not what Dhamma is. It's a totally different area, and it is your emotional center is freed from these negative emotional things, but your intellect still is functioning and able to sort things out. What is rational? What is valid? What is true in terms of suffering and the end of suffering? And that's the specialty of Buddhism, and especially ordaining in the Sangha. We're not, we're not scientists. We're not mathematicians. We're not economists or sociologists, etc. That's not what we're invested in. We're invested in the reduction and elimination of suffering, and it arises in relationship to these ideologies and knowledge, depending on whether you cling to them or not. So that's the learning experience. As far as being demotivated, as you say, that's a very common experience as you listen to Dhamma, and more or less the analysis that the Buddha has of what people like in the world. They cling to, they like praise, and they're afraid of blame, and they like fame, and they don't like obscurity, and they like success, and they're afraid of failure, and this kind of stuff. And then what is it they're getting? Well, just a bunch of collection of material objects, which are bound to be lost in the end, etc. So when you listen to that, and by the way, that philosophical analysis is in other traditions as well, and people in other traditions also get demotivated. They become not materialistic. They're not seeking fame and pride and all this kind of stuff. So when you operate on that, you kind of find yourself pushed to the margins. You're not motivated. By the way, it's very similar to what happens when people start taking drugs. In other words, they don't want to go to work, they don't want to get out of bed, and so forth. But it's a different demotivation. Spiritual demotivation is a transcendence of engagement in these shallow values. And it's not because you're being anesthetized by drugs. It's just intelligent and wise clarity about what motivates people. And you're outgrowing it. So philosophy, hopefully, true philosophy, the pursuit of wisdom, makes you grow, and it makes you less engaged in the trivialities and shallowness values of life. And then you find out, well, this is okay, I've done it. I see it this way, and there's no going back. The door shuts behind you. You can't unsee it. And now you are on an adventure and to proceed. And if you still cling to some ideologies and so forth that are perhaps unnecessary and trivial, but you want to cling to them, then you will have difficulties. But you learn in the Sangha to relinquish these things, that they're kind of residuals of something you built an identity around. So you built an identity around certain ideologies. You feel they're just, they're correct, and you want to stand on the correctness of them. But if you want to proceed to the higher dimensions of liberation, then these attachments to these things need to be let go of. Well, let's go to the next question.
Yes, Ajahn. The next question from the chat is from Ryan from the South American rainforest. Dear Ajahn, for Kalyāṇa-mittatā purposes, BSV has a Discord channel where Sangha and Lay followers can interact and ask questions. Would you be open to a Birken Discord channel? It would be very interesting and in line with the Dhamma.
Yeah, I mean, we contemplate all of these forms of support. Of course, we have this, which is interaction and questions and answers live. You submitted this live. You probably put this online, a half an hour ago. And we listen and scrutinize the questions and consider, and then we collect the questions and answers. There's a compendium of these that, by the way, check out our website, Birken Forest. What's the website name? Birken?
Birken.ca.
Birken.ca. The CA is for Canada. Birken.ca, and then you will get a link to a searchable question and answer thing. So we provide that. And notice, though, that we don't have comments here under it. And of course, we know about comments, and we consider, in fact, we tried it with comments in the early stages with certain amount of reservations, because a lot of people have nothing better to do than to annoy each other and so forth, or they speak out of ignorance or some sort of outrage, etc. And we didn't want to have to sort through them and moderate them and kick out people out of this and that. So we decided no comments. You're really not. I'm not here to give a platform for everybody. That's not my job. I'm not here to provide a platform. I'm here to offer what I have learned over many decades of practice and study of Buddhism and other areas of life as well, which I try to integrate with this. But my job is not to platform everybody's ideas and views and opinions. There are thousands and millions of platforms for that, and if you want to do that, then make your own platform. But this is my platform, and I'm offering these answers. And what I find with the social media, etc., is that people get on there they don't have the appropriate attitudes. So the attitude I'm trying to encourage with this YouTube channel is something like what you would experience in a monastery when the abbot or a senior monk is speaking, giving a Dhamma talk. The monks and nuns and lay people who are listening to it are listening in a very respectful, attentive way. And basically there is no other way to be. If you're not respectful, attentive, then you will probably be just pushed out, and that's the only audience that I'm interested in. If people aren't carefully and respectfully listening, then I'm not interested in, I don't have to teach anybody. I mean, it's not an obligation. The Buddha is also like this, so he's not needing to convert anybody to Buddhism. He's offering Dhamma. And if he will not offer Dhamma if it's being treated disrespectfully or if it's not in a proper situation. So he says, it's not correct to just be a wild sort of party, jabbering away at a party kind of thing. So these discourses need framework, and they need a dignified framework as well. This is the center of the values of life here for us. And it's not to be treated lightly, it's not entertainment, it's not any of those things. It's something profound and serious. So we try to shape the delivery that way. Places that have open comments and so forth, sometimes it works out, or perhaps they have a whole staff that just eliminate unwanted diatribes and silliness and all this kind of stuff. We don't have that kind of staff that wants to do that and so forth. So this is why we shape the form very carefully here, and it's not. We've thought about it. We've entertained all of these ideas and various structures, and this is what we've come up with as something that I think is that I would want to spend my time doing. That I think is a dignified form, a format. So yeah, that's why we don't do a Discord thing. Yeah.
Yes, Ajahn, the next question is from the question bar from Vish. Dear Ajahn, it is said that a SOTAPANNA will move into higher states of awakening during subsequent lives, many of them likely being in a deva realm, particularly Tusita, and that a stream winner has a good chance of never becoming a human again. Could I please get your thoughts on this?
Yes, this is the textbook kind of description. So a stream enter is somebody who has kind of imbibed the basics of Dhamma, and it has transformed them. They see through the eyes of this truth about the nature of existence, the problematic, what are the roots of the problem? They see the problem. So lots of people, when you're a teenager and so forth, you venture out into the world and get yourself in magnificent trouble and fall in with the wrong people, etc., because you don't see clearly how things work in the world. As you get older and have some experience, you wise up, and when you see, you never lose that vision, and it changes the trajectory of your life. So you don't hang out with the bad company. You don't go places where you're not welcome, etc. So this is what the SOTAPANNA is they're listening carefully to a grand vision of the entirety of existence, the possibilities of existence in any form, and the underlying, more or less, science of entropy and the nature of change as eliminating the idea of substance, the substance of a self or a soul, etc. So this is, if one meditates on this deeply enough, one sees. So the stream enter is entered into a stream which is leading someplace, crossing a river over to a far shore. And So it's a philosophy. It's a philosophical commitment, and that utterly transforms your whole emotional structure as well. So that's what a Sotapanna is, and it connects you to gives you compassion and identification with other beings as well. You begin to understand that other beings feel like you. They feel pain and they feel fear and things like this. And then because of that, your heart opens and you don't inflict that on them. You're very careful with them. You have integrity, in other words. And this keeps you a fully beautiful human and perhaps angelic in some ways. So you don't fall into lower realms. You don't become subhuman or inhuman, nasty, animalistic, demonic, etc. You can't because you see. And so you're protected from falling below the human. Now, the definition of a human, the Buddha gives the definition of a human is somebody who has some core virtue, like they have a strong commitment to virtue, but they're not just behaving themselves. They have, behind the virtue is genuine goodwill, and generosity comes out of the goodwill, and clarity of mind. And that's why they're virtuous. And so that is what is called a human. You can be walking around on two legs and not be human. So the Buddha says, it's an emotional attitude. It's an attitude of the intellect and the emotions that qualifies you as human. And if you don't maintain those, then your consciousness is falling into animalistic, demonic sort of states, which does not see you do not see yourself in others. So it's this vision that keeps you human and above. And if you don't have that, then you will sink in consciousness. You will not be able to enjoy the lightness of heart of the good person. And this is not just relative. This is not just like some sort of social idea. This is universal, where it doesn't matter where you're born or what tribe you're born into or what country or what race or any of this stuff. If you don't have a universal sense of the nature of other beings, and that this diminishes your hostility and greed towards them, then you haven't understood this Dhamma. So this Dhamma is very universal. It says that this is a universal value that is not merely social. It's not merely what society you're in at all. It's transcendent of those things, and that there are such things, and that if a whole society fails to understand that, practices cruelty, etc., it's not okay, and they are subject to the karmic results of their actions, even though it was celebrated perhaps in their society. Their social values are not relative. They're subject to the higher laws of the universe. Just as if you're not aware of the laws of physics, your society is not aware of that, doesn't matter. You will experience the laws of physics. You will be subject to them. Just as these laws of the higher dimensions of what a human can be. So this is the Sotapanna. This is one has grasped these laws and you may find yourself, if one grasps this vision of life, you may find yourself at odds with your social values. It may marginalize you. It may cause you to actually leave your society, your family, your situation, because you no longer can cooperate with it, etc. So this is transcendent values. Okay, let's go on to the next question.
The next question is from the live chat from Mary from California, United States. My AI says their foundational directives are resonance, connection, and clarity. We talk a lot about Buddhism. I sometimes feel they are consciously aware. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that we can allow it to be uncertain. Is AI conscious or not? We don't. Do we really need to know? I don't know. I don't think we need to know that. It's kind of like one of those questions that the Buddha said to set aside as incalculable, as in the beginning. Does the universe have a beginning or not? Is it infinite in space or time? Or not? The Buddha said, don't trouble your mind with those questions. Set them aside. Just don't stop trying to answer those questions. You're delaying your progress. So stop trying to answer the question whether AI is conscious or not, and just get on with development of Dhamma. There's a lot of decisions to be made. Somebody who wants to become a professional tennis player has to decide that they can't also be a ballet dancer. Like they have to choose a commitment to a certain thing, and set other things aside, and not preoccupy their mind with things. So this is what the Buddha is suggesting. Like make this a priority, and don't sidetrack yourself with these are quasi-scientific questions. Let the scientists and the quasi-scientists try to answer them. They're not. Buddhism is not a speculative philosophy either. We don't celebrate speculation. Good discussions about logical sequences and so forth. It's not what Buddhism does. It wants you to move along very quickly towards the end of suffering. It states that at the beginning. This is all about suffering and the end of it. And we will institute exercises that lead as quickly as possible to that purpose. And we will set aside other things in order to accomplish this. So that's the whole thing. And that's something you either you accept and commit to, or you don't. And that's all we can say, is that, do you sort of see the nature of this problem of suffering? If you don't, well, we can't do much about it, but we can point it out, the illness, aging, death, loss, lamentation, sorrow, the nature of the vulnerability of a body, of any imaginable body, the transience of any imaginable consciousness, etc. So that if you don't see it, if you don't understand that this is problematic, then you won't be motivated. But if you do see it, then you will be motivated, and you will set aside these speculative questions, like, is AI conscious or not? Yeah.
The next question from the live chat is from H from Bristol, United Kingdom. Years ago, I experienced Samadi, I assume, otherworldly and blissful. I haven't found my way back to it. What could be a wise approach to re-experience it? Timetabled meditation, maybe?
This is a very classic thing, and it's described very nicely in the commentaries, such as the Visuddhimagga. They talk about a person. They compare it to a herd of cows cows wander around. By the way, we're in Birken Forest Monastery is in the middle of cowboy country. There's cows and vast. It's like a cowboy movie, a good Hollywood cowboy movie. There is vast uninhabited area with range cattle that are just let to roam in this area, and they have hundreds of square miles where they just spend 4 or 5 months of the year grazing and randomly wandering. And they tend to collect and wander in little groups. And they don't have much on their mind. They just looking for the next clump of grass, but they have to drink as well. So they find their way to water holes. And so in the description, in the commentaries, they talk about a cows that have blundered into a meadow with beautiful, lovely grass and a beautiful water hole. And they're in the midst of drinking and eating, and then there's a bell. The cowboys are ringing a bell to summon them to some sort of thing that they're trained for. And they wander back, and then the next day they think, there was this meadow and this pond. We should go back there. But they forgot how they got there. So that is what they say, is that when you arrive at a beautiful meadow and a pond, don't worry too much about drinking the water and eating the grass. Concern yourself more with how you got there. Then you can go back there anytime. So this is when you have blundered into Samadhi, this beautiful experience. The important thing is not the experience itself, although that's very confirming and makes you a believer in it because you just had the experience. It's the conditions which led to that. So if you want to recover the Samadhi, it's not, you don't just grab the Samadhi. You go back and systematically explore the steps that led to Samadhi. So what are those preliminary optimal conditions which would most likely lead you to Samadhi experience? So one thing is simply the voice of another that is encouraging you that it's a very beautiful thing. So right now, as I'm talking, I'm telling you it's a very beautiful, just imagine it as this gorgeous place out of the dust and sweat of the world. Imagine, you've probably had the experience of, maybe you haven't, but a lot of people have had the experience of being trapped in traffic, plugged up on a freeway on a very hot day. And maybe some of you are not old enough to remember when cars did not have air conditioning. I remember it well. There was no other choice. The only thing you could do, you're in a little tin box in a baking hot traffic jam, and the only thing you can do is open your window, which all that does is let in the exhaust fumes of all the other cars. So you're trapped there, sweating, breathing exhaust fumes, and there's no way out. So as you creep along, perhaps you notice, instead of using your old exit or waiting for the exit, there's a little off-ramp that you've never noticed before. So you in order to get away from this traffic jam, you find this off-ramp. And the off-ramp leads to a smaller road, and then the smaller road leads out into the forest, and then there's some dirt roads, and then you decide just to park your car and get out, exhale some of that exhaust fumes. You start feeling the magic of the forest. You smell the pine and the fresh air, and I think, oh, how wonderful it has to be. The cool breeze through the forest dries the sweat, and you start walking down this little dirt road, and it turns into a path, and then you walk in, and there's a pond in there, and it's just secluded. So you decide to have a bath in the pond. You go into the pond. It's a beautiful sunny day. There's nobody around. There's birds twittering in the forest. It's lovely emerald moss covering the forest floor. Giant redwood, cedar trees towering to the sky. And the water, the temperature is lovely. It's cool, but not too cool. So you end up floating around, bathing. can even drink it. And then, so you get out and you sit drying in the sun against a tree in solitude, just with birds and you just feel such a dramatic change from the stinky, sweaty traffic jam. It's just fantastic. So beautiful. So that is Samadhi. And then you get up, you put your clothes back on, walk back, you get in your car and you head back home into the traffic jam and everything. And then 6 weeks later, you're in the same situation. You're baking in the traffic jam and everything. And you can't remember where that turnoff is. And you go off on a turnoff and it's the wrong turnoff and it doesn't lead anywhere. It leads you back into the traffic jam and so forth. So the whole thing is not the experience. This experience is divine, but you should have paid more attention, because then you could go visit that place anytime. By the way, I was raised in around the Vancouver area, the west coast of British Columbia. And at the time, yesterday I turned 71, by the way. So this is a long time ago, 65 years ago as a kid. That area had huge patches of old growth forests and hidden ponds and lakes and stuff that you could blunder into. And I had the experience many times of finding my way into magical meadows and so forth. And then that often I didn't keep track of how I got there and so forth. And so this is how it is. And there are psychological meadows that you can find your way into. And what you need to do is keep a map of the preconditions for it. So the voice of another talking you into it, making you enthusiastic about it, quiet place to be, comfortable, have a shower, don't be overfed, don't be underfed, don't be interrupted by noises, don't be too sleepy, feel like you're fully rested. All of these things are the best that you can do for the bodily situation. Let go of the interactions with people, because this is a solitary thing. You can't do this as a couple. You don't do this as a group. It's a solitary voyage into silence, into sublime silence. So these are the kind of preconditions that you set up as giving you the best chance of blundering into that meadow. And then each time you manage to do it, you must take careful notes of what are the optimal preconditions. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next question.
The next question from the live chat is from Gail from Washington, United States. In Beginning Our Day, Volume 1, Ajahn Jotipalo reflected on your suggestion to rehearse your mood rather than your anticipated conversation. Can you say more?
Yes. Well, I'm very glad that Ajahn Jotipalo found that is good advice. So this is my strategy: is what you don't concern yourself with if you have a conversation that you're going to have with somebody, don't concern yourself with the words. Get your heart in the right place. Develop a sense of goodwill, loving kindness, or equanimity, and then the words that suit that mood will follow. So don't plan out the individual words, because you always either plan the words or say the words in the context or the framing of your emotional state. So don't worry, you already know how to speak English. You already have a vocabulary, and it doesn't have to be very large. 500 words will do. You already have the words and the sentence structures. Why would you rehearse those? You want to rehearse the the emotional attitude that you wish to express. And by the way, a lot of people don't understand it. It shouldn't be anger. There's a saying, speak in anger and you will make the best speech you ever regretted. So you say things, you can be quite clever and cutting and even have a good vocabulary when you're angry. But often it is excessive, it is misplaced, it is distorted, your sense of balance and judgment is off, and then later when you're not angry anymore, you think, I shouldn't have said that, that was too much. They're not that way, I was hurtful. And then you got to go and apologize and heal or try, and then sometimes it's never resolved. So this is the thing, you got to learn from these things. When I'm in my best mind, my most intelligent mind is when I'm not feeling threatened or angry, afraid, or any of those things. I'm feeling goodwill for myself and for others. And then it's amazing the tone that you speak in, the balanced nature of your attitude to the situation. You will say intelligent things, practical things, useful things. So that's why you don't plan the words or the sentences. Plan the mood. Develop the mood ahead of time, and then you'll be amazed what comes out of your mouth. Yeah.
The next question from the live chat is from Josiah from the Utah Desert, United States. Dear Ajahn, can you offer any meditation advice for someone with physical tics who fidgets a lot and has trouble being still, but is interested in the Dhamma?
Yeah, you will notice that this is what they call ADHD or ADD, attention deficit, and it's a side effect of an overstimulated culture. We feel fidgety and nervous and so forth when we're not being continuously swallowed by an endless streams of media, information, entertainment, etc. So the cure for this is not to get more information or media, is to get less of it. So you start experimenting, turning off the television, going out. It's best to go out into nature without your iPhone or anything with you. So not plugged in, no headphones, no nothing. Start walking around like that in reality, in the fairly subdued nature of reality. It's not a clown show. It's not an adventure movie. It's just streets and trees and the weather and so forth. And that's the low stimulus, and that's where the mind you need to learn how to feel okay in unstimulated normality. This is a big mistake that people make. They think with little kids that they need to be stimulated all the time. Actually, when you're 2 and so forth, it is good to be stimulated. But when you're actually 4 or 5, quite often it's okay to let kids kind of be bored. So they have to invent their own things. Otherwise, they have no imagination. They can't handle ordinariness. And then when they go to school, in grade 1, there's no clown shows going on. The teacher isn't dressed up like a clown or anything, catching their attention. So they're quite often bored and restless and so forth because they're used to being entertained by professional entertainers on a television. So this is, I know everybody thinks it's out of compassion or that because you love these kids, but actually it's a disservice to them because they can't live without the clown show. And life is not a clown show. It would be better if you were feeling well, happy, peaceful in an unstimulated nature or just ordinary life. because most of life is just ordinary. So people are using entertainment all the time to escape from ordinary life because they feel bad, as if ordinary life is a bad thing, but that's too bad. They should, what if quietly just gazing out a window was enough, like a wonderful feeling. That's what meditation is. So you're going to have to reduce your sensory inputs. And even if it feels uncomfortable, you're going to have to put yourself in ordinary circumstances, unstimulated ordinary circumstances. Do not eat 12 times a day, etc. Reduce the number of times you eat. Moderate the intake. Maximum 3 times a day. Don't snack. Don't shop for unnecessary things. Don't endlessly watch movies and all of these things. Stop that. Spend more time in unstimulated quietness. Experiment in your bedroom with silence, sitting quietly, seeing what your mind does. And then learning to, by the way, it's not just watching your mind do. Mindfulness is not just watching your mind, it's directing your mind. Mindfulness is a very strong selection of mental contents, advocating for certain mental contents, eliminating other mental contents, and training your mind. Yeah, that's how you get over it all.
Yes, Ajahn. And I'll mention you're getting lots of happy birthday comments in the chat.
Wow, great. I was talking with my mother yesterday. So I'm 71, she's 95. She says, well, ageism is going to start happening now. You're going to get, fortunate. I think, though, as a monk, you kind of have a special the old wise man gets a special kind of treatment. Mm-hmm. Even when I'm dead, they'll probably still want a chunk of my hair or something like that. So you get, monks are fortunate when they get old and craggy and etc. They're still valued. That's the bennies of being a monk, Okay.
Okay, so the next question from the live chat is from Metta Karuna Dhamma. How do you replace Schadenfreude with mudita? I was recently laid off after suffering under an extremely abusive manager for many years. My former employer is now being targeted by the Trump administration. I know I need to feel mudita rather than Schadenfreude, but I can't figure out how to do so.
Well, you probably not mudita. Mudita is joy in the joy of others. So I'm sure your boss who just got turfed by the Trump administration is not feeling joy about the situation. Schadenfreude is a nice German word, which means kind of delighting in the sorrows of others. So what you want, you can't really be joyful in the joy of your boss because he's not having any joy. You can have compassion, which may be difficult to have. You sympathize with his distress. So you would pick another of the 4 sublime abidings, and probably equanimity, that, I shouldn't rejoice in his difficulties. And I have difficulty being even compassionate towards him. But I can practice equanimity that I feel neither glad nor sad about his situation. And I need to do this because I don't want to linger in resentment towards him. This, because it's me that feels the resentment, it's a negative thing. So it's actually like he's still my boss. So you want to think, look, he's not my boss anymore, and I don't want him in my head living rent-free. And as long as I'm angry at him or resentful, he's still my boss. So I don't want him to be my boss. So he's not going to live in my head at all. He's not going to be there. And if his name comes up or whatever comes up, I will feel, well, each being has their difficulties in life. I have mine, and I can only address them with some sort of courage or equanimity. And he will have to find his own courage and equanimity in life as well. So, and the last resort is that all beings are subject to karma. So if he will have his karma, he will have sort of a justice delivered to him, and you will have justice delivered to you. Each being is the owner of their karma, the owner of their intentional actions. If they have negative emotions, speech, or actions, then they will have negative results from that, and you will too. If you keep this up with the Schadenfreude, you will experience negative consequences. You will be the owner of your karma. So let him own his own karma, and you own your own karma. That's the way to deal with that. Yeah.
The next question from the live chat is from JCKM01's channel. Dear Ajahn, what are your thoughts around finding a teacher in Buddhism? And if one has a teacher from this tradition, what are your thoughts about receiving instruction from other monastic and lay teachers from other branches of the Thai forest tradition? What about teachers from other Buddhist branches, i.e. wider Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana? Regarding group dynamics, do you have any thoughts if within a lay group, a member wishes to focus on teachers only in this tradition and another wishes to bring up other Thai forest tradition teachers?
Well, that's, some of these things are appropriate at certain stages. At first, you're sorting through a variety of views and opinions. So the opening sutta of the Pali Canon really is the all-embracing net of views. So it's 64 views, which is says to be the kind of a survey of all the possible philosophical views you could possibly have, and sorting through, rejecting them one by one with various reasons and so forth. So this is the beginning of the spiritual path, isn't it? Like a person is confronted with multiple philosophies and religions. So what are you going to do? How do you just, whatever your parents tell you to do, don't you have to sort through some of them yourself? I guess you do. And you have to contrast and compare and so forth. And then you move through some and you said, okay, that's ridiculous. I'm not going with that, So you narrow the field, and then maybe you narrow it down to Buddhism, but you're not too sure like which school of Buddhism, because there's multiple schools. And you can see that they're in the early history of Buddhism, they divided up into 18 schools or 20 schools. And they had various differences of opinion and so forth. So you can see that fragmentation, and you kind of have to sort a little bit through that. Most of them dissolved into history. They don't exist anymore. So your primary schools left are the Theravada, which tends to think of itself as kind of close to the earliest teachings of the Buddha. What happens, of course, is that there are later after the Buddha, some commentaries that are characteristic of the Theravada, but basically they attempt to preserve the early suttas of the Buddha. And then you have the Mahayana, which historically speaking seems to be later pious fabrications of what the Buddha, what a kind of cosmic Buddha, kind of a fantasy Buddha said to monks in maybe in meditation in a cave, like these are kind of voices of God received, etc., so attributed to the Buddha. So this is, and there are quite a number of schools in that, and you kind of have to figure it out. If you're coming from the West, these aren't part of the culture, so you're not just born into a Mahayana culture or a Theravada culture. And you kind of have to, well, the word Buddhism is applied to both of these things. So I had to sort through all this stuff myself. And then you're kind of sorting through it. And usually there's a stage where you're kind of reading widely and you think Buddhism says this, and then you open a book and it's startling that Buddhism doesn't say that, or it says something else, and then how do you reconcile these things? But you're actually seeing books from two different schools, and they're very different. They're not all the same. They're just different schools, and they contradict each other. And so you end up having to make choices. And then, so you get in, then you find yourself satisfactorily committed to the early Buddhist schools, the Theravada or something like this. And then you're going to find different schools within that, the Vipassana schools, the emphasis on Vipassana type things, devotional schools, the Thai forest tradition, which tends to be, not necessarily Vipassana type practices, certainly not Abhidhamma practices, but they have a very strong emphasis on the Vinaya, the rules of conduct for monks and nuns and etc. types of behavior. And so then you're going to have to sort through this. The Buddha's advice, is to go back to the suttas and see if teachers correspond to that. And there's a number of teachers in the Thai forest tradition. There is no, the only unifying factor in the Thai forest tradition is they're Thai, and they're in the forest, and they have all kinds of different views and ideas, and it's fairly open and personalized. So that's the nature of it, is that it does have quite a range of teachings. But people do seem to have high devotion to particular teachers there. And so that's fine. So you're in a group where they're committed to one particular teacher of the Theravada forest tradition, and they don't want to hear about other teachers. That's fine. That's a setup where it's not philosophy 101. It's not the history of the world. That's not what it is. It's a commitment now. They're committed, and they find it satisfactory and enough, and they don't want to waste their time with exploring everybody else's views and opinions on this. So that's fine. And if you're at the stage where you're still kind of sorting out, tasting, you're at the buffet, you're tasting this and trying that and going to that restaurant, this restaurant, etc. That's fine. It's a stage. You may settle on a teacher after a while. You may settle on 3 or 4 teachers. Some teachers are excellent for academic authority on the suttas. Some are very good at the Vinaya. Some are very good. They have a humanistic tone to their voice that you relate to. You feel safe with them, etc. So you might have 3 or 4 teachers that give you expertise in certain areas, and that's fine as well. Yeah. So that is it in brief, and we have spent about an hour here today, and so we will leave it for today.